Hello there guys, Daniel Childs back here again. Hope you're doing really well. Team selector time for the game tomorrow against West Ham. Lunchtime kickoff in the Premier League at the London Stadium. For the second week running, Chelsea approach a ground against an opposition they don't have the greatest record at, especially in recent years. But as was proved last weekend, even after some drama, Chelsea can break those kind of hoodoos or bad runs at certain stadiums. And of course, I think the London Stadium and especially West Ham at home provide such a difficult challenge for this current Chelsea team. I think they provide a lot of things in transition that do concern me, and especially the ways in which I think they could isolate or expose some of Chelsea's weaknesses is a concern. But, you know, Chelsea are coming off the back of a win. I think quite a big and important result, winning at Bournemouth last weekend, and I think hopefully getting through that difficult period at the Vitality last weekend will hopefully set us in good stead for this game. But obviously still some injury concerns, still some concerns over the personnel. We'll get into all of that. Please like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. So let's, as we always do on Team Selector, we look at Enzo Maresca's press conference and specifically team news. So Malo Gusto is still not fit. There was absolutely no mention, at least at the time of recording. He may have mentioned it later on and it gets revealed in the embargo section tonight. Nothing on Romeo Lavia. So I guess we assume he's not fit. He may crop up in the matchday squad, but at the very least, I don't suspect he'll be starting this game. He may make the bench, but it doesn't look likely at this point. Reece James, there was talk about Reece James of his return being unknown. We spoke in depth about Reece James last night. So if you want to go and listen to that show, please go and do so. It's literally the last episode. So if you want kind of an extended conversation about Reece James, it's there. So we expect he won't be available. But let's take a look at West Ham. So their form this season has been a little bit inconsistent. I mean, the season hasn't exactly started off on fire. It hasn't been dreadful, but maybe there could have been an expectation of a better results. I mean, they're yet to win at home this season. Though, to be fair, their first two games at home this season have come against Aston Villa and Man City. So not the easiest opposition. It was a close game against Villa. Actually, for periods, it was a little bit close against Man City. I actually think that is one of the things that makes them very dangerous at the London Stadium. They caused City quite a few problems, and it was really the genius and brilliance of Erling Haaland that kind of bailed City out of what was quite an awkward evening at the London Stadium. They drew 1-1 last week, a very late equaliser by Danny Ings, set up by Jared Bowen, prevented a defeat. So as I said, it's been a bit mixed under Julian Lopetegui after the departure of David Moyes last season. Now, they are playing a 4-2-3-1, and I think that Lopetegui maybe is trying to implement a game that is a little bit more about passing, but I kind of feel that West Ham are at their best when they are just sticking to their true identity, especially in recent years, which is using their speed, using their attacking talent in transition. That is always what has made West Ham a dangerous team. Their set-piece prowess too. Even losing James Ward-Prowse only there for what, a season. You know, they've still got good delivery from set pieces. So for me, I don't think there needs to be much revolution at West Ham. They are an effective Premier League team, and especially when they come up against teams that are on paper superior to them, this is where I think they come into their element. I think the biggest concern for me is Mikel Antonio, who scored against Chelsea last year. There are a few players, especially away from home, that I fear more coming up against than Mikel Antonio. He is such an embodiment, I think, of West Ham's best traits. He's able to physically be imposing, technically be good on transition, make really good decisions, and cause a variety of opposition real big problems, as he has done to Chelsea on a number of occasions, specifically at this stadium. Obviously, you look at Jared Bowen out on the right wing. Thomas Souček, especially from set pieces, is always a dangerous. Kudos, who Chelsea were linked with last summer, has proven to be a really, really big bit of business. Hasn't really started the season amazingly well, but we know has tons of talent, has good trickery again, dangerous in transition, and can make something happen out of nothing. A little bit of a creative maverick in this team. Julian Alvarez, another player in central midfield Chelsea were linked to. Rodriguez, who signed over the summer. Wan-Bissaka, of course, signed from Man United at right back. He, has lapses in games, but I still think athletically has always been a very good player at this level, and of course can provide something maybe further up the pitch as well. Mavropanos, Kilman I think is a very good signing, and of course Emerson, who did score against Chelsea, not last season, the season before last at the London Stadium. So this is a dangerous game. I think it's a dangerous game for Chelsea because of those things that we spoke about in the build-up to the Bournemouth game, right? Of Chelsea being sloppy in possession, making mistakes and being punished for them. And I think that is absolutely one area where I still have a lot of concern, especially on the the right-hand side, the left side of the attack, especially where Bournemouth nearly got a bit of joy. But I think as the game went on against Bournemouth last week, when we look at the individual performances of Moises Caicedo and Renato Vega, it seemed to be a little bit more stable. But again, that balance issue remains one of the key things. We can talk about the attacking talent in Chelsea's team till the cows come home, really, because there is quite a lot. And that's not saying that Chelsea have nothing to make opposing teams fear them or no capability to control periods of the game. It's just that balance of those really bad periods of games where maybe things open up and Chelsea being done on transition. I saw a comment, I think it was after my Bournemouth review, talking about you're making far too much of Chelsea's ability to give away transition opportunities. Man City get done on transition. Arsenal can get done on transition. Yeah, every football team at a point can get done on transition. It's a little bit disingenuous. It's the variance within it, and it's the capacity and the ability of teams to expose a weakness over and over and over again. It's not that we can never, like Chelsea can never give away a shooting opportunity to the opponent. That's obviously farcical. Even the greatest Chelsea teams, you're going to concede goals, you're going to concede good opportunities. That's just the nature of football at the highest level. But it's about, of course, the nuance within that. It's about how much you're giving away. I saw a stat that Chelsea have conceded actually more shots so far this season than Everton, who are currently near the bottom because they haven't won so far this year. So those are things that needs to be ironed out, but I'm not entirely sure, again, the answer to it. I think it's about maybe Maresca finding his feet so far this season and trying to find a midfield combination that offers him the right balance between being proactive, controlling the ball, but also having enough protection when you do lose it. So let's get into Chelsea starting 11. Robert Sanchez, you could argue last weekend was his best in a Chelsea shirt. I probably wouldn't argue against that. He had quite a strong game at the Vitality last year, but it was even better this time, obviously saving the penalty and making a few big stops in the second half as well. So hopefully he can continue his strong form and get another clean sheet. Right back, I'm going to go up for the name that... I did last week, and that's Josh Akpom. Maresca spoke about him briefly in a press conference. No Gusto, no Reece James. I didn't like seeing Axel Disasi in that role. I don't think Tosin is a good fit either. There's a reason, I consistently talk about this, why I think this is where the academy comes to the fore and where a majority of your academy should be used as kind of squad filler. That may sound a little bit demeaning, but players who can fulfill roles, important roles, but show that versatility, fill holes and gaps in your squad because of injury or because you haven't recruited them in the transfer window. This is where I think Akpom hopefully can get a start. And if he's not starting in this game, the argument against him starting any other Premier League game is kind of the same. I understand there will be some trepidation. There always is with a young player, but more times than not, nearly all the time when we give one of our academy players a chance, they prove worthy of getting more minutes. And I think Akpom has stayed for a reason. He's got credit a lot of the time. We've heard reports that the club value him very highly. Let's give him a start and see how he does, because I don't think any of the other options when we don't have Gusto or James have proven good enough personally. Fofana and Colwell obviously made a show earlier this week. You can go and check it out where we spoke about Levi Colwell, his ability as kind of a hidden playmaker and kind of been a very strong player for Chelsea so far this season. But of course, Fofana still coming into games again, and maybe that sloppiness, that lack of football was what caused that kind of brain fart last week that nearly led to a winner potentially for Bournemouth. It was the one that led to Evan Nielsen running through and Sanchez taking him out for the penalty. Fofana needs to be a lot better. He needs to be a lot more assured on the ball, like Colwell, because it can cost Chelsea absolutely. And you saw between Disasi and Fofana, especially maybe the lack of stability in that kind of right back to right centre back position, a lack of chemistry there, and that needs to be ironed out, because that's also where opponents like West Ham are going to be looking to capitalise and get those runs in on our defence. So obviously it's a concern. Marco Correa, I think, got better as the game went on against Bournemouth. He's obviously starting at the moment. Midfield 2, even though I suspect Fernandes is back from suspension, I'm probably going to go for the same two. I think there's a variety of reasons here. I think, Caicedo, obviously, I thought was brilliant last week. He really was. He had what you'd want a defensive midfielder to do. He did it. Not getting a yellow was also quite ridiculous in that game, but it showed his the precision of his tackling and decision making was really good. Vega started off shaky, but I think got better in his positioning and his decision making as the game went on. And I look at sort of what you need against West Ham. It's going to be a physical game. You're going to need height at set pieces. You're going to need players who are going to want to go into those 50-50 battles. That's the nature of this game at the London Stadium. And if you don't have that, you are vulnerable to being overrun, and Chelsea have been overrun several times at this stadium and have maybe lacked that physicality. So Vega may not be the best passer, and that's why people want Enzo Fernandez back in the team. But I'd argue Enzo Fernandez's passing performances so far this season haven't been exemplary. They really haven't. So for me, I'm going to stick with Vega. But I think he'll go with Enzo. But let's go with Vega. I think that's quite a stable. And I'm mainly looking for more protection for the back four. That's what I'm thinking of as well. Then we get into the attacking area, where I think there's a big conversation already being had. And we had it last weekend after the Bournemouth game. I've seen a piece by Liam Toomey in The Athletic about it, and others as well. Christopher Nkunku or Nicolas Jakcosn. I think that's the big conversation about this attack, because I think the rest of it speaks for itself or is quite easy to predict. I think most people will want Jadon Sancho to start again after his performance against Bournemouth off the bench. I think obviously Cole Palmer is going to be starting pretty much every game for Chelsea he can, in kind of a more central role. And Noni Madueke too, although it wasn't a great performance from him against Bournemouth, he still is providing a lot for Chelsea, and I think he looks like a player who's hungry to do more. You want to keep him on the pitch because we know how electric he can be when he does get that space, when he can get into the final third and make good decisions. That decision making has improved, so you want to give him more opportunities. I think he's earned more minutes. Then you get to the problem of Nkunku or Jakcosn, and I'm a big fan of Nicolas Jakcosn. I think he gets so much stick given his age, given his lack of minutes before arriving at Chelsea, given the number of goals he scored. But Nkunku, for me, is a level raiser for Chelsea. Now, the argument could be made that, of course, Jakcosn is a taller, maybe more physically imposing player than Nkunku, and could be more useful at set pieces to defend in this game and also to attack. And because of his kind of selfless, tireless work, he opens up space for others. I think there's a lot of work that Jakcosn has done and has improved on in his game that kind of goes under the radar and people don't give him enough credit for, because those things are important. Obviously, we want him to be scoring goals. That's what he's going to be judged on as a striker at Chelsea, like Nkunku. But at the same time, there are other parts of his game that is making him a more rounded player that I think is really impressive. But Nkunku, he is a guy that I just feel when he gets into that kind of 6-yard box, just looks a level above. So I'd like to see him start centrally and see how it goes. And then you do have the license to bring Nicolas Jakcosn off the bench. Maybe Maresca thinks, well, it worked last week, so we'll do the same strategy. Jakcosn starts, I'll bring Nkunku off the bench against a tiring West Ham defence, and that becomes a danger for them later on in the game. But I keep on saying this, I think that Nkunku is going to have to be a starter at some point. If he keeps on scoring, if he keeps on having the impact he does, he's a starter. So you have to find a way to balance all of those players out. It's not easy, but I think Nkunku is too good to just kind of be on the bench waiting for like the last 20 minutes. I think he has to be so much more than that for Chelsea. So that is my starting 11. Let me know yours in the comments below, and I will see you again very soon. All the best.